The second you say white people are competing in ways that they didn't have to before, all of a sudden people hear something that you never said. And that misunderstanding is a reason why this moment feels so tense. They get defensive and hear it as nobody ever worked hard or everything you have is fake. That's not what's being said.
I was born dirt poor. Roaches in our food, mattresses on the floor, eviction notices taped to the doors, kind of poor. My parents, their side hustle was beating me and my siblings bloody. I missed more meals than I can count. When we did eat, it was ramen, canned foods, or whatever we could steal from the gas station.
We go out every day and we bust our f***ing asses because nothing is handed to us. And there will be nothing handed to us. You get your own channel, you get your own history month, you get your own special programs to get you into college. Now I need to get back in here and get to work because ain't no f***ing program gonna pay my rent.
The real point is about how competition worked before, who got access, who didn't, and why things feel off now that those barriers have weakened. When people hear the word competition, they usually imagine a fair race. Same rules, same starting point, and same access. Everybody lines up and whoever performs the best or works the hardest wins. But that image doesn't match how competition has really played out in America for most of its history. I'm not saying that white people didn't compete, but they competed primarily with other white people. They competed within a system that already decided who is allowed to participate and who wasn't. Entire groups of people were either excluded completely or restricted so heavily that competition was never actually fair to begin with. If you were enslaved, you weren't competing. If you were legally barred from education, you weren't competing. If you couldn't own land, couldn't vote, etc., you were not competing. So when they say white people have always had to compete, that's not true. They competed inside of a system that dramatically reduced the number of competitors. That's not real competition.
Weird. I never had anyone giving me a goddamn thing my entire life. But it's so funny because if you're poor and you're black right now, I would say the entire fucking country and world is catering to you. But it's weird. We forget about 80% of the country that is white trash, that has no sympathy, gets no empathy. They will never make it out of where they came from. They have no shot and no one cares about them.
Only people who buy the lie of white privilege are two people. Wealthy white people who erroneously attribute their soft lives to their skin color as opposed to their wealth, and struggling non-white people, obviously this country has many, who erroneously attribute their struggles to their skin color, even though those struggles are the same struggles that struggling white people have.
What they're saying only sounds reasonable to people that don't understand what white privilege is. I'm not about to go on a long rant about this because I already made an entire video on white privilege. Growing up poor means that you lacked money. White privilege is about how race affects how institutions treat you, not how much money your family had. Those are two completely different ball games. Poverty does not equal racial disadvantage. A poor white kid and a poor black kid both can struggle financially, but one is far less likely to be seen as threatening, one is more likely to get the benefit of the doubt, and one is less likely to be punished, surveillanced, or stereotyped because of race. Another thing, privilege is about what didn't happen to you. White privilege is not your life was easy or you never worked hard. It's you weren't assumed criminal because of your skin color, or your race wasn't used as evidence against you, or you weren't punished extra for existing while poor. Privilege isn't about the pain you had, but it's about the pain you didn't have to carry in the first place. In the US, opportunity wasn't uneven by accident. It was designed that way. Slavery didn't just exploit labor. It removed black people from the competitive economy entirely. Redlining didn't just shape neighborhoods. It prevented generational wealth. Segregated schools controlled who got credentials and who didn't. Immigration laws openly prioritize Europeans while restricting everybody else. And that's only scratching the surface, because you have other things like Mississippi appendectomy, periodigo, black codes, environmental racism, etc. The list goes on. And some of these things are still happening today. I've said that before and I'll keep saying it. And all of this is piled up, generation after generation. It limited how many people could realistically build wealth or access power. And when fewer people are allowed inside the race, the people already inside it don't have to outperform as many others in order to succeed. Now, that doesn't mean that every white person benefited equally, but it does mean that the system reduced competition in ways that benefited them directly. And because those advantages were built into the system, the people benefiting from them barely noticed they existed. This present moment feels so different to so many white people because the barriers that filtered out competition have weakened. I'm not saying they disappeared, I'm not saying that they reversed, and I'm not saying that they went away, but they've weakened enough to matter. Now minorities can access education legally at scale. Black women can enter jobs that were historically closed off to them, and information is less tightly controlled by elite institutions. Credentials are more profitable, and hiring practices face at least some level of public scrutiny. Not all the time, but they're starting to face more. Again, I'm not saying that it's disappeared completely, but I am saying that it has weakened a little bit. So now white folks are competing with people whose ability was always there. They just never had the same level of access before.
DEI is racist. And yes, this is the time to talk about it because the government, a lot of corporations, universities, academics, people all over the United States have dug into society and embedded this cancer everywhere. And you damn well know if you've been a victim of it, you know what it feels like to have busted your ass and not gotten promoted or not gotten a job because you didn't meet some BS quota.
And now white men are being replaced in every country in which they reside. America was a majority white country for 400 years almost. And now it's not going to be in a matter of 10.
I asked you to show me where Charlie Kirk was racist. All I got is the DEI comments and he doesn't want a black pilot. Yeah, neither do I, and neither do hundreds of thousands of people. I don't want a woman pilot either. Don't blame us for this shit. You can blame the Democrats and all the fake ass bleeding hearts out there for having DEI, which is basically saying, hey, black people, minorities, we know you're too incapable. So, all right, we'll hire you. We'll skip over people that are actually qualified. We need equality. Even if you're not qualified, yeah, you can do it.
And if you grew up believing that the system was neutral, that shift probably feels unfair to you. It probably feels like rules have changed mid-game, even though the rules were never fair to begin with. You were just taught and conditioned to believe that they were. That's why you see racist outbursts becoming more public, why racist groups are organizing now more than ever, and why you see slogans like "No More White Guilt" popping up left and right. It's all backlash. It's a response to the weakening of a system that a lot of them depended on. For generations, white people were promised stability. They were taught that if they followed the rules, then things would mostly work out for them. Respect was assumed, competence was assumed, and authority didn't have to be explained or defended. So when that default status starts to weaken, it doesn't feel like equality to them. It feels like loss, even when nothing tangible was taken away. Because privilege doesn't feel like privilege when it's normal. It feels like the default. And when the default changes, people interpret that as something that's being taken from them instead of something that's being corrected. And that emotional reaction, not logic, is what really fuels them. Another reason this conversation gets distorted is because people treat white dominance as if it's ancient and universal. It's not. For most of human history, European societies were not the global standard. African empires dominated trade and education. Asian civilizations led science, engineering, and systems of governance. So European dominance is a relatively short chapter in human history, and it was built through colonization, slavery, resource extraction, and military force. It didn't happen because they're just the greatest thing to ever walk the earth. So what's happening now isn't some unnatural collapse. It's rebalancing towards something much closer to historical reality. And rebalancing always feels unfair to the people that benefited most from the imbalance. So this is where white grievance enters the picture, right? Grievance isn't just about hardship, because hardship is something that everybody experiences at some point in their lives. People lose jobs, relationships fall apart, and things don't always go according to plan. That part is universal. Grievance forms when those hardships collide with expectations that were never questioned in the first place, and there's no framework to understand why that collision happened. Many white people were raised to believe that if they just did what they were supposed to, the system would eventually work out in their favor. And to a large extent, it has been that way. this country is set up for white people to succeed. They weren't necessarily promised that life would be perfect, but that effort would translate into stability, respect, and a sense of being on solid ground. And that expectation becomes part of how people see themselves and their place in the world, even if they never say it out loud. So when a system stops clearing the pathway like how it has before, the first instinct is never to interrogate the system itself. Most people don't start by questioning economic restructuring, policy decisions, or historical shifts in power, because a lot of times those explanations are complicated and emotionally unsatisfying in the moment. Instead, their frustrations look for something that's concrete, something that's visible. It looks for something that feels immediate and personal. And that's why the blame usually lands on black people. Not because we caused the problem, but because we're the most visible.
Why are you buying? How do you have money to buy all this bread?
Security, please. I need a security. Get away from me.
I'm just asking, how
Get
come
away from me.
white people
Security, please.
white people
Get
can't fill a
away
shopping
from me.
cart, but these come in our
Get away from
country
me. And who's monkey? Can somebody call me a security, please?
and they come in this country. These ones too. What are you guys doing? You gonna fill up a whole shopping cart?
Somebody stupid.
Are you gonna fill a whole shopping cart up?
Don't talk to me. Don't talk to me.
When they see new faces in workplaces or different voices in different social spaces, when people feel uncomfortable, they look for something that they can point to. Whatever feels new becomes the suspect, even if the real forces behind all of this are invisible. Because systems don't have faces or voices. You can't argue with them, and you can't confront them emotionally. But people, on the other hand, are visible. So resentment moves sideways instead of upward. It gets aimed at us instead of the economic and political systems that actually control the outcomes. And when that resentment gets fed stories about favoritism or special treatment, that's when it starts to harden. And at that point, it starts to feel personal. Equality feels like exclusion to them, and losing guaranteed status feels like discrimination. It turns into a story about how something was taken from them. That shift is what turns frustration into grievance. Not just anger about struggling, but anger pointed towards a target that had nothing to do with any of it, even if it feels wrong. This is not the end of opportunity for white people. It's still a long way to go. It's just the safety net that's been under them has slightly been weakened. That's it. The systems that reduced competition for centuries are starting to weaken because they were never sustainable to begin with. What we're seeing now is not oppression replacing privilege. It's certainty being replaced with uncertainty. Equality doesn't promise anyone success. It just means that the race is real. And for the first time in American history, white people are finally getting a small taste of what that actually feels like.